SimWorld presents Around the Table with E and the Fat Man.
What's up, everybody? It's me, it's the B.O.B., and I am here with my man, E. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm living in a snowy Chicagoland this weekend, Bob, but I've been enjoying some college basketball on the TV. Of course, we got the National Football League Conference Championships, but we also have Around the Table, and I love the topic we're doing today. I think we're going to stir some stuff up, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, yeah. So this is Around the Table with E and the Fat Man. That is E. I am the Fat Man. And this is our little podcast where we just pretty much talk about whatever we want to talk about. But yeah, so our topic today is our five, let's see how to have it, how do we say it nicely? 5 teams that we are most
worried about.
Yeah, most worried about.
Concerned about. We just want to make some people angry today, Bob. We're talking trash about their team. That's what we're here to do.
Yeah. So why don't you want to go ahead and kick this one off?
Yeah, I will. And again, this isn't in any particular order, and it's not like, a reverse poll ranking where we're giving our bottom 5 or something, but there are teams we're worried about. Me and Bob are worried about. We had some interesting counterpoint when we did our top 5 last weekend. Let's see what we got going on the other side of the coin with this one. And the first one I am going to throw out is an international squad. They overachieved last year. I'm worried about them underachieving this year, and that is SimWorld Africa.
Oh, yeah.
I have real concerns about them. Now, let's talk about one thing I'm not concerned about, and that is A.G. Fabenle. Yeah. He is an all-world point guard. He's grown, too. He was amazing last season. Yeah. He's going to be amazing in a 6'5" frame this year. He's the truth. I actually expect AG to be playing professionally. I mean, like NBA level ball. I think he is really that good. I think he's one of the best players in this game. Problem is then you look at the rest of the Africa lineup, and nothing but a lot of question marks, to be honest. Last year, Africa, in addition to having AG, they also were incredibly tall. Like their length and their rebounding and defense was amazing. I don't really have that with this team this year. It's just a very different kind of Africa squad. Abraham Kasongo out of the Democratic Republic of the Congo is a nice, 6'11", 200-pounder, but he's not overly skilled. And behind him, there's just not that much. It's going to be a very different Africa team for people who watched Africa last year. And in addition to that, this team can't really shoot. That's going to be a problem too. I'd say probably of the international teams, I'm not sure if there's a team that projects to be more inaccurate from the field than Africa. I love that they surprised us all last year. Maybe they'll do it again this year. Who knows? But I got to lead with them for my teams that I think are likely to disappoint. I'll kick it over to you, Bob. Did Africa also make your list, or you got somebody different?
No, they made my list. And the biggest thing was for them, last season, they were outlandishly big. And that's just the talent that they have in Africa. They typically have a lot of height, and especially going up against high school kids. I don't think there was a bigger team last season than SimWorld Africa. And this season, like you said, they have Kasongo. He stands at 6'11". Outside of him being freakishly tall, they have some tall players comparatively to high school basketball, but they just don't have any skill at all. I am looking forward to seeing Nganda Lukundi. He signed with SimWorld Africa this offseason. I am looking forward to see what he can do. And obviously, Fabenle, he's a very, very, very talented international player. But I just don't think those two are going to be able to do it alone. And again, their height was the reason that they were able to defeat last season's SimWorld Hoop champions, Cascadia, or formerly known as Pacific Northwest. So I don't see the talent there. I don't see the size advantage that they had last season. I don't see them making a splash.
I am glad we agree on this, Bob, and to kind of cap it off. We talked about a couple players there. Nganda Lukunde out of Kenya. Again, I like him as one of the new players that they've signed, but keep in mind he's a wing player, only standing 6'1". If anything, he's undersized kind of for what he's bringing out there. And there's another player out there actually I like on the team, Enrique Conti, out of Angola, left-hander in the paint. He's a big, good defender, great athlete. Again, he's kind of undersized at 6'5". Maybe when players like Lacunde and Conti kind of grow into their bodies a little bit, both of those are 16-year-olds. You might see something a little bit different next season, but yeah. I think we're right to be worried this year. We'll see. But all right, that's Africa, and that's one down from both of our list. I'll let you go next, Bob. Who else you got?
I'm going to kind of stick with the international theme, and this will be the last time I have an international team. I wanted to limit it, but I did cut SimWorld Atlantis off, but still want to throw their name out there. I was still a little worried about them, but I'm going to have to go with SimWorld Middle East. I just didn't see them do a whole lot. They still have Omar Hadidi. They just signed MT Bin Hassan after he was released from his commitment. They have Morbaskis, but I don't feel like they've done enough this offseason to really be able to do anything. Hadidi didn't really grow too much. He is, as of right now, their best player. I do expect Hassan to get some playing time. I think he's going to be fighting with Hadidi to get as much time as he would need to grow. But yeah, Middle East, I don't think they've done enough to really be a threat next season.
Middle East was a consideration for me. I have your same concerns. Now, they do also have Azad Abdul Rahman, who is a good shooter. He has blossomed up to 6'5". Really, Abdul Rahman and Hadidi were the core of this team, which again kind of played above expectations last year. But I think they'll be okay. I am a little bit concerned about them. Who I will talk about for a quick second because you threw him out there is Atlantis, and I think Atlantis is going to be fine. I actually like some of the players that they've put together on this team. Kieran Pollard is flying under the radar, one of the new signees, 6'3" guard, who I think is going to be really good. And I think they have some other nice pieces on there. Teams like Atlantis and Asia Pacific, I think could surprise this year. I think Middle East will be okay. I'm a little bit more optimistic on them than you are, but I don't expect them to win a whole lot of trophies. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, and like I said, for Atlantis, you mentioned Pollard. We got Mickey Hartman over there. Them two should be able to do a little bit of something. I'm not as optimistic as you are for them, but hey, you never know. You never know what's going to happen with the SimWorld Hoops season. So, how about what's your next? Because you obviously, I know Middle East wasn't on your final five. So, what's your next one?
Well, the next one, and they struggled a little bit last year. Are they going to struggle a little bit again this year? And that is the AT Aliens. In some ways, I actually find some parallels to Africa with this Atlanta team, which is, their bigs are a question mark for me. D'Angelo Muto, returning, played with him last year, started last year. He's 6'7", and he's a decent athlete. And they also did bring in Isaiah Rose, 6'8", 200-pounder, who's a really good defender. But I'm just not sure how much offensive production they're really going to get in the paint. And then if you look kind of up and down at the rest of them, there's other guys coming back on this squad too. And of course, it is good, and there is some value in bringing back veteran players. But their point guard from last year, Kalen Colbert, is still standing 5'6", and that was a problem last year. It's going to be a problem this year. Some of the other guys coming back too, like Darwin Cohen, decent pieces, but not stars. Also, ATL, their shooting as a team might actually be worse than Africa, which is saying something. I, again, just don't see a whole lot of guys who can pop and hit from outside. I think that there's an X factor on ATL, and maybe, this will be the difference. Malachi Booth ended up there, famous from the drama of leaving Indy, ending up there. I'll tell you what, he landed at a place where he's going to get plenty of playing time, I believe. I think he should come right in and definitely, play a little bit of a combo guard. He can maybe even swing the point a little bit for this team. Again, he's not necessarily the answer at shooting, And new player, learning a new system, new teammates, and everything else. But he is maybe again like the variable that maybe can ignite this Atlanta mix. But I have real concerns beyond this. I just don't see where a whole lot of scoring, where a whole lot of anything good is going to come for this squad. They got a couple good young pieces there, but definitely concerned about the ATLians going into this season.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't feel like I would say they lost their best player in Freddie Stonewall from Ground Zero season. The well-traveled Malachi Booth, like you said, should get a lot of opportunity to lead this team if he wants to lead this team. I do know that some of the players on ATLians how do we want to say ATLians? I don't know, whatever.
I fall back on Atlanta.
There you go. I am so sorry, Outcast. I apologize for not being able to properly pronounce your album. Yeah, I mean he's going to have the opportunity to do that. But coming from being the worst team last season to not really having a splash signing, obviously they have the same coach.
Yeah.
Generally have the same team from last season. Their best player is gone. They're on mine too. They were on mine too. It was an easy choice because they just, again, worst team to doing not a whole lot in this offseason. I don't see them improving too. I'm sorry. They were the second worst team. I apologize. I always
Seattle was worse.
So I'm a little skewed on that because obviously for me, Seattle had two great players last season and they pulled off that huge upset in the first round of the playoffs. Sometimes I forget that they only had 2 wins heading into that, and Atlanta I think had 4. So so second worst team. I'm sorry, ATL. Second worst team.
and the tough thing is, I mean, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. You like bringing players back, right? You like the idea of having an experienced squad, but when you're bringing them back from a team that didn't do much last year, and they've got 5 players returning in Georgia, and D'Angelo Muto is the only one who's really a name at all. And as I mentioned, he's probably going to be their center. He's going to be their main option in the paint this year. He goes 6'7". He's not tiny, of course, at 6'7", but that's not also huge at this level and in this game. And he's not really that skilled offensively. And to be honest, he's not a great defender. He makes up for some of it with his athletic ability, which makes him a good rebounder. But, some of these other players we're looking at, like famous names like Jackson Glenn and Jamone Moore. And if you don't remember them, there's a reason for that. Maybe they'll have come alive a little bit. Maybe they added some wrinkles to their game in the offseason. But once again, I think you and I are on. I can understand why we're in agreement about this being a team for concern this year.
Yeah. Yep. So we'll go ahead. Talked enough about them. They took up half our...
Why don't you give a third one? Bob?
They took up half our show.
Next.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm going to go ahead. I'm not sure if this is a surprise pick, but they disappointed last season. I'm not sure, again, that they have done enough coming into the official season 1 of SimWorld Hoops. They had one of the most disappointing players last year, and you're going to agree with me when I mention them. Actually, they had a couple of really disappointing players. So Philadelphia Elite. I'm not sure. They brought in a couple good signings. They brought in AJ Frost, Nos Hall, and Lolaron Leopard. They brought in CKC's brother, but again, we have to try and curb our enthusiasm on that because we don't want to compare the brothers. We don't want to put too much pressure on Darian to have to play like his brother. They brought in Orland Mock, but I don't see. They had extremely talented. Oh man, I'm drawing a blank on his name, and I wrote on him all last season.
Are you talking about their undersized diminutive guard?
I am.
Bryson Summers.
I don't know why I couldn't think of his name. He was a top. Well, projected to be one of the top. He started well, but not as well as we thought he was going to. And then he he cost them a lot of games.
Yeah. He wasn't playing well, but to his credit, or perhaps not, he never stopped shooting.
He never stopped. He did not stop shooting the ball, no matter how many times he was.
Nope.
You got to appreciate that sometimes. I was a big Brett Favre guy. He threw a lot of interceptions, but he acted like he could throw an interception, but he's going to forget about that the next time and go out and throw another interception. But one of my biggest disappointments on that team last season was Marcus Lofton. I really thought that he was going to be a lot better than he was, especially as big as he is. But he just kind of, and I guess that could be that Summers effect where Summers kind of brought that team down, and I feel like maybe that just brought their mental state down. They do still have Quan Singleton. I believe he was in the dunk contest last season, right? Or was that the other? Was that another?
I don't think Quan made it, but he is athletic, and actually we've seen in just some pickup games and limited action of him since last season. Quan Singleton seems better, I will say that, than he played last year. Bob, Philadelphia made my list too. So, we agree on this as well. Now, at the start of the show, we said, look, this isn't like a ranked in order kind of thing, and it's not. But I will confess that Philadelphia was the last team to make my list. I struggle with them a little bit because, like you're saying, there are good pieces here. Marcus Lofton, he's never going to score 20 a game, but I christened him young Marcus Camby last year because sometimes he plays like it. He can really rebound. He plays defense. He blocks shots. Quan Singleton coming back, talked about him. You mentioned some of the new players like Nas Hall and AJ Frost. AJ's a great shooter. Nas Hall might be a little bit under the radar, really. He's I think, going to be a good scoring guard. One name we didn't talk about, Orland Mock. And I think he is going to be really good for these guys. That said, they made my list because I feel like their roster is imbalanced. As good as Lofton is down low, he's their only real big man, and he's not a scorer, as I already mentioned. They have a new signing, EOL Singleton. He's just 6'7". He's young. He can shoot the ball. He's a good shooter. I think he is the key component here to if this Philadelphia team can gel or not. If he can become their other starting big or even come off the bench and kind of play important minutes and play an important role for these guys, they could be good. I like a lot of the parts here. I like a lot of the parts a lot. I just can't see them fitting together in a way that's going to be a winning team right now. If Singleton is, turns out to be really good, and I haven't seen much of him, I don't know. I can't say. I've just going off some scouting reports and some basic info. But if he, fits in, if he's the key that unlocks this, then hey, congrats, Philadelphia, you're going to be great. But I have a hard time seeing it right now, and that's why they made my list too.
You have to remember, I know you keep saying it, I think we're so used to the NBA. You have to remember, 6'9" is ginormous in high school. And it is. Even 6'7". 6'7" is ginormous in high school. I was 6'3", 6'4", depending on how I slept. And when I played football, I only ever went up against somebody bigger than me once in three years, one time. But no, Marcus Lofton, before I forget, I had talked about, I think it was because there's only a very few amount of players that have a Q in their name. Obviously, I felt like I was wrong with Quan Singleton, and I knew I was. It was Kintel Patterson.
That's right.
Was in the dunk contest. He just kind of. I'm blaming. It was the Q.
It's the Q that got
the Q got me. So I apologize, Quan, for giving you, making you feel maybe a little bit
inadequate.
I will say inadequate somehow. I apologize, Quan. I'm still looking forward to see you play this season.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. All right, so it sounds like, we both had Philadelphia on our list.
Yep.
We
both had Philadelphia and both had Africa so far.
Are we on our last picks each?
I have two left.
You got two left. Okay.
Yep. So I'll go ahead and throw one out there next. Let's see if we're I know I'm loving all this cordiality we're having. we're in agreement. It's awesome. Let's see if any of my last two picks can throw you off course a little bit. Next up for me is the Lone Star Basketball Club.
All right.
They were Dallas last year in the first season. Lone Star Basketball Club. Outside of Nene Gibson, there's just so much drama with the LBC. I can't really see this team. It's another Philadelphia where there's nice pieces here. Nene Gibson is a star. He's great. He was great last year. He's not going to be poor this year by any stretch. Really good player. They have Derek Long manning the paint, and he's actually, I think, one of the better rebounders in this game.
Good defender.
Yep, good defender too. And, there's even a few other positives I can throw out there with Lone Star. I like the signing of Jace Miguez.
Yeah.
I think that's a solid recruit coming in. There's another newbie on the team who I don't think anybody has talked about at all. Maybe I missed it. Kyrie Witten Justin, KWJ. Remember that name? I think anyway. He's somebody who I would identify as a not being talked about under the radar guy. Kyrie is an athlete. He's a creator. He's a good defender. And I think he'll be able to play, kind of a combo guard role on this Lone Star team. But overall, I just think that there's a talent deficit, both in terms of some guys who are coming back, like Chris Yardley and Jalen Pratt, a couple guys at wing. And of course, Nene Gibson can play 30 minutes a game. It can cover kind of some of that a little bit. But that's a question. Behind Derek Long, I don't think there's really much inside, that they've got going on. 6'6" LaShawn Berry is probably their next guy, who again is a returning player coming back, and a decent defender, but doesn't bring a whole lot else to the table. I like the fact they've got a new coach, although, obviously he's just kind of getting his feet wet right now. Coach Adkins there, Evan Adkins. This is another team, Lone Star, that was pretty mediocre last year, and they brought a lot of those pretty mediocre guys back. I kind of expect them to be what they were last year. They'll let Nene Gibson shine some and overall be poor. And that's kind of what I see for LBC coming up this year. What do you think, Bob? Do you like them a little better than I do? Did they make your list for your final one or what?
I think people are going to think that we talked about this beforehand.
No way. They're on your list?
So,
no way.
Lone Star Basketball Club was on my list. So I just, again, it's one of those things where how many coaches have they gone through? I mean, it feels there's no consistency. There's no leadership at that coaching level. Hopefully Evan Adkins is able to get the best out of these guys if he stays. There's something going on with the Texas teams right now where I don't get it. But Lone Star's up there for me. It's like, what are they doing? You're right. Like Miguez, great signing. They have some good players still on the team, but when your coach is constantly in and out, like they've had at least, I feel like they've had at least 4 coaches over the last year.
It seems like it. And look, and this roster, I think, ends up feeling a little bit that way, too. It's another one that feels imbalanced to me.
Yeah.
There's only a couple true guards on this team, Kyrie Witten Justin being one, and Amin, why am I blanking on his name? Amin Giffen being the other. And they're both really points. There's no true shooting guard, although, obviously players like Nene Gibson, more of a wing guy, but he can swing to that shooting guard spot. But again, I feel like the lack of bigs. This is a team of talented wings. There's plenty of talented wings in the squad. But that of course leaves you some question marks in the paint and out on the perimeter. I don't think they're going to be terrible. I don't think they're going to be the worst team in SimWorld, but I have a hard time imagining them being the best too.
Yeah. Yeah, if they had the right coaching there, I feel like they could be a top 10 team for sure. Because like Nene Gibson's great, Derek Long's a great defender, good down low. Chris Yardley, I think he was a good defender last season as well. Didn't really stick out offensively. I really think the only true offensive threat on this team right now is Nene Gibson, and he's going to have to be a volume shooter for that team to keep up with the other squads. So I guess we'll see. So yeah, I think we were 4 for 5. today. So who is your
that was your last one, right?
That
Bob?
was my last one.
Count.
So you got the one that whenever I picked the SimWorld Middle East, you still have that one left to replace them for me. So what do you got?
That's right. I know. So this is our points of disagreement. And I didn't hate your Middle East pick. I kind of considered them. I thought about them. Didn't end up going with them in the end. Let's see what you think of my last one. I wonder if they were a consideration for you. All right. Enough with the preamble. Enough with the anticipation. Let's get out to it. My last team on the list, Reigning Trays, formerly the Seattle Stars, who were the worst team in SimWorld last year in spite of a late season upset in the tournament, advancing a round or two. They were just awful last year. Like 2-20 or something was the record. I don't have it in front of me, but it was something on those about like that. Maybe they won 4. I take that back. And first of all, that has to make you wonder if there's a culture thing going here. And there's no new coach involved here as well. This is still Keyshawn Everett's team going into his second season. Now, to the club's credit, they have turned over the roster and they have brought in some really good players. Probably none better than Japhett Towns.
Yeah.
He is somebody, he's not flying under the radar by any stretch, but he's somebody who I think is just going to be the man out there. He's pure offense. And I think he's going to be great for them. They also brought in Kevin Jackson, and also a really good player, really good athlete. Who I think the two of those, Jackson and Towns, both want to ideally kind of play shooting guard. I think a little bit, so we'll see how that kind of works out. But two really good players there, and also Kylo C, whatever you want to call him, Kylo Charamapopoulos, if I'm saying that correctly, and I could be. Kylo hold on, I'm going to get it right. Kylo Charalampopoulos. Kylo Charalampopoulos. I can say Greek names. Look at me do it. I actually like Kylo a lot. He's a creative player. He's got good size, 6'7" for a wing player. I think he's going to be a nice piece. And there's also, some returning pieces here, or at least one big returning piece. Literally a big returning piece. And that's Jason Crosser, who is 7'1", 220-pounder, left-hander, actually really skilled. He's got a good handle. He's a good defender. He can shoot a little bit. And in spite of all of that, he was terrible last year.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to use that word, but I don't even think Jason would disagree with me. He just, couldn't get his shot to go. Seattle fell apart, and he was part of that falling apart. So, if he has really flipped the switch, we'll see. But he could be big for these guys. There's a question of point guard, I certainly think, with the Trays. I'm not sure who's going to take that over them. It should be an open competition. Could be somebody like a new signing like Nick Beal.
Yeah.
Just 16 years old, out of Brooklyn, coming on. He's a pretty pure point at 6 foot, 200 pounds or so. There's other guys too who could get in there. Ryan Fugit, for instance. But overall, just seeing Reigning Trays, then called Seattle, struggling as bad as they did last year, still not knowing if Jason Crosser is one of those guys who has all the measurables, all the skills, but doesn't do it, over the 32 minutes of these SimWorld games. A lot of these new players look talented, but you got to see how it's all going to mesh together. And just the culture thing. Again, no, in spite of having the worst record in SimWorld, no coaching change. Same management in charge. Will it be same results for Reigning Trays? I just have a lot of question marks here. Again, some individual pieces I like, but overall, not sure if these guys have what it takes. Not sure if Jason Crosser is the real deal or not. And I guess that we're going to find out in about a month, Bob.
This is going to be a surprise to you, but when I put my list together, Reigning Trays was the number 1 team. They were the first team that I put on my list. Obviously, they didn't make my final 5, and that mainly had to do with, I believe that Jason Crosser was used incorrectly last season. As big as he was, as big of a physical mismatch as he was, it was never used. His size was never used. And I'm going to chalk that up to Coach Everett and just the coaching staff not being able to put these kids in the right position. They had 2 great players last season. that they couldn't take advantage of. And I think that the addition of Jafet Towns, Nick Beal, and Kevin Jackson are going to be big for them. But again, it's similar to Atlanta. Like, they're bringing some of these players back, but the coaching is still the same. How is this coach going to change? Are they going to suck up their pride and go, okay, you know what? I'm the reason that we were in that position. I'm the reason that we lost these games. Or is it still going to be just, I'll let them go out there and do their own thing? And if that's it, it's going to be more of the same for Rainy Trays. So I definitely, again, don't disagree with your choice there. They were, again, when I sat down and started putting my list together, the first team, without a doubt, that came to mind was Raining Trays, and they were the first team that went down, but they were the last team, unfortunately, that went. I don't want to. Do I say unfortunately? Fortunately for them, they were the last team that I took off my list. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a fair, very fair team to put on there. The one team that I'm surprised it didn't make either of our lists, and I'll give it an honorable mention, was Showtime Basketball. I'm just kidding.
Oh no, yeah, I know. Don't discredit yourself there, Bob. You don't want to do that. Hey, actually, but I will end the show this way. Right. Also, put another team on warning. Gulf Coast lockdown. I thought about including you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the pieces are all fitting there either. Gulf Coast. But yeah, this has been a fun one to do, Bob. It's nice to have you and I be in agreement. But you know who's going to disagree with everything we said is everybody involved with all of these teams that we've mentioned.
Oh, so, absolutely.
And that's okay.
Yeah, if I would have included Showtime Basketball, I wouldn't have heard the end of it from Corey Yams. So no, I wanted to bring it. You brought it up, and then we just kind of glossed over it. You brought up today is the NFC and AFC championship games. Do you have any picks for that? I mean, the Philadelphia are 3-point favorites, KC's 2-point favorites. What are your thoughts on those two games?
So I have two thoughts. I'm actually going all underdogs today in terms of what I think will happen prediction. I think you're going to have a Bengals 49ers Super Bowl, taking it back to, oh my God, when did those guys play in the 1980s? 1983 or 6 or something like that. I remember Boomer Esiason, I believe it was, going up against Joe Montana, of course, Jerry Rice back then. I think you might get a replay of that. That's actually my feeling on how it's going to go. I expect it to be Bengals 49ers, and my rooting interest is I don't want the Eagles back in the Super Bowl again. So I'm hoping that I'm right on my 49ers side of that. How about you, Bob?
I mean, I got to agree with you on this one. So for me, it's been one really good season for Hurts. I'm still not completely sold on them. They have done an excellent job of putting him in a position to succeed the way that he has. They've allowed him to use his legs. They have Miles Sanders out there. They brought in A.J. Brown last offseason. They've drafted some solid wide receivers. So I think they put him in a great position. But I think this 49ers defense is just going to be a little too much for him.
Yeah, that defense is tough.
And we'll see. I mean, the Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy, he's been doing enough. I'm not going to say he's this great, amazing quarterback, but he is.
Don't say it, because he's not. No. He fits the system, and they manage him, and it works.
And that's what it is. Sometimes you just need a quarterback or somebody to do their job, and his job is don't turn the ball over. Don't turn the ball over and make smart decisions. And don't overthink it. And he's not. He's literally out there. He is playing exactly the kind of ball that the 49ers needed. And that's why I think that Trey Lance is going to see his way out, because I don't think Trey Lance is good for the 49ers system. But that's a different discussion. And I'll jump real quick for the Bengals Chiefs game. All it's going to take is one little tweak of that ankle on Mahomes, and he is not even going to be anywhere close to the player that he is expected to be. This is not his injury. Is just not one that is I'm good after a week, good after 6 days or whatever. No, that ankle injury, all it's going to take is one defensive lineman to twist him down when they're taking him for a sack, and he's out. And I think Joe Burrow, the what is it? The legend of Joe Burrow continues.
yeah, Burrowhead.
Burrowhead,
Right.
yeah. Did you see the mayor of Cincinnati and his proclamation?
Oh, I did. They're getting cocky out there.
They are. They wanted the paternity test to verify whether or not Burrow was Mahomes' father.
Actually, his father.
Well,
I love it. I love that kind of stuff, and I love that. And I hope that we have stirred up some feelings with our comments here too today, Bob. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. Well, Eric, I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody that comes out and listens to our little thing here. So, do you have any final words?
No, other than, I know that recruiting has been slowing down, but there are still some good recruits out there, coaches and players. Don't give up yet. There are still spots in SimWorld teams, and I'm just looking forward, I should say, to getting the season going on March 1st.
Absolutely. We got month and 2 days.
Month and 2 days, and it's a short month too. It's going to go by like nothing.
I say month and 2 days. So yeah, so what? Maybe it's like 28 days. We're 28 days.
Yeah.
And the season
We're inside
starts.
a month.
Well, again, appreciate everybody listening. Appreciate you, Eric. Have a good rest of your weekend, guys.
Bye, folks.